It's Throwback Thursday, where we review books published over 50 years ago. But before we take a trip in the past, let me confess, people often ask me what's my favorite book from season 1 of the podcast. At first, the question used to trip me up, but over time, I would commonly narrow it down to a book published back in 1966. Jubilee by Margaret Walker is one of the most remarkable novels you'll find that speaks to the life of a black woman during the 1800s. The story follows the life of a mulatto slave girl named Valerie Brown, and much of her story is based off of Margaret Walker's own great-grandmother. Throughout the book, life during slavery, life during the Civil War, and life during Reconstruction all are delved into through the eyes of Valerie. It should go without saying, but America loves to whitewash history, so I'll say it. Slavery actually happened, black people hated everything about it, and the Civil War most certainly happened because of it. Anybody saying anything otherwise is quite literally a fool. Back to the book review. The first act of the book. The book opens with the birth of Valerie. Her mother dies shortly after, and she's left under the care of some of the slave women, specifically Aunt Sally. Life, of course, is merciless on the plantation. Valerie witnesses the close-knit community of slaves either die from brutality and/or exhaustion, or they're sold off. Valerie herself is met with brutality at a young age by Big Missy, the wife of the slave master, who hangs Valerie by her thumbs in a closet for accidentally breaking one of her dishes. More grief comes into Valerie's life as Aunt Sally, her closest confidant, is sold off. However, a glimmer of hope arrives when Valerie meets her first love interest of the story, Randall Ware, a free black man who works around the city as a blacksmith. He promises to marry Valerie and buy her freedom, however, the slave master refuses to allow it. Randall Ware sparked the notion of freedom in Valerie, and she will continue to yearn for it throughout the remainder of the act. In the second act of the book, it shifts towards the Civil War. At this time, the plantation was slowly deteriorating. The slave master, Master John, had died, and his son, John Jr., was off fighting in the war, and all the slaves were fielding news about the war, Abraham Lincoln, and this thing called emancipation. At this point, Valerie now has 2 children with Randall Ware, who's also fled to the north to fight in the war. John Jr. dies from war wounds, and Big Missy dies from being a lonely, grief-stricken bitch. The plantation is literally left to the slaves, who all run away with the exception of Valerie and her children and a few other female slaves. This is when we meet Valerie's second love interest, Ennis Brown. He's not literate or well put together like Randall Ware, but he genuinely cares and protects Valerie and her children. And even though she was waiting for Randall Ware to come back to free her like he had promised, there was no telling if he fell victim to the war or not. In Act 3, Valerie and her 2 children have moved to Alabama with Ennis Brown. Life is relatively cruel to them after their first house was washed away in the flood. Ennis builds their second home, which is burned down by the Klan shortly after. Though these events rattled Valerie, her and the family continue to press forward. Both her and Ennis find work around the town and begin to make a normal life possible for the family. Later in the story, Randall Ware shows back up. He and Ennis Brown had a conflict with each other, and it takes Valerie to reason with both men. Both Randall and Valerie would reason a little further, with Valerie telling Randall, "Ennis and me has got a marriage, Randall Ware. We has been through everything together. Birth and death, flood and fire, sickness and trouble. You and me didn't have no chance to make a marriage. Slavery killed our chance." Randall, making one more plea, states, "I figured too when I came that I could offer you everything, and I can. Anything your heart desires, Valerie. Find home, money, education for our children, everything." She shook her head. "Big house don't matter to me. I was a slave in a big house, and I knows that don't mean no warm, loving home and peaceful night's sleep. Your money was always gonna buy everything, even much me and my freedom. But it was a dream, Randall Ware." The story concludes with Valerie expecting her first child with Ennis Brown and settling into her new peaceful life. For a deeper dive of Jubilee, go check out Cover to Cover Episode 2, a discussion about the importance of history, link in the description. Like if you enjoyed this segment, share if it could benefit others, subscribe for more book-related content. Till then, stay in the book or stay out the way.